from Annie Dillard. I am an explorer then, but I am also a stalker, or an instrument of the hunt itself. Certain Indians used to carve long grooves along the wooden shafts of their arrows. They called the grooves lightning marks because they resembled the curved fissure lightning slices down the trunks of trees. The function of lightning marks is this: if the arrow fails to kill the game, blood from a deep wound will channel along the lightning mark, streak down the arrow shaft and spatter to the ground, laying a trail, dripping on broad leaves on stones, that the barefoot and trembling archer can follow into whatever deep or rare wilderness it leads. I am the arrow shaft, carved along my length by unexpected lights and gashes from the very sky. And this book is the straying trail of blood. Something pummels us, something barely sheathed. Power broods and lights. We're played on like a pipe. Our breath is not our own. James Houston describes two young Eskimo girls sitting cross-legged on the ground, mouth on mouth, blowing by turns each other's throat cords, making a low, unearthly music. When I cross again the bridge that is really the steer's fence, the wind has thinned the delicate air of twilight. It crumples the water's skin. I watch the running sheets of light raised on the creek's surface. The sight has the appeal of the purely passive, like the racing of light under clouds on a field. The beautiful dream at the moment of being dreamed. The breeze is the merest puff, but you yourself sail headlong and breathless under the gale force of the spirit. It's end of chapter 1. Oh boy. Here we go again. I have a few knots to untangle this morning, I guess. One is that I went to my therapy session with my priest last night. Psychoanalysis, spirituality, hybrid session. And I was telling him all about some of the stuff I talk about on here. And, mentioning the idea of a paradoxical intention, that when I feel the urge rising, like the urge to vomit, it rises, the urge to get into an argument with someone in my family, usually someone in my family, I'll say, all right, so I guess we better fight now. Let's do it. This is from Jay Haley. This idea that you prescribe the symptom, and it's effective. It seems to have a kind of effect. We're unpacking that, so I kind of wanted to rehash some of those thoughts. But also, as I was finally back in the sauna, my safe space, thinking and sweating, I was just kind of brooding on the topic of simplicity. Thinking about simplicity, what it takes to be truly simple. And how that problem is kind of the problem of art itself, certainly of acting in the most obvious way, because in acting you can't be too complex. You can't come across as artificial. Somehow it's this this strange activity of using artifice to create the semblance of the natural. Some kind of video display that's distracting me right now. You can see that cultural building. It's been inhabited by ghosts and ghouls or something. Video display. And that art exhibit really pulled one over on me. I accidentally stopped recording and speaking into the void for the past 5 minutes. My worst fear. I was just, I was laying down some thoughts, now lost to the ages, about the bodily nature of speaking. How when you speak, it's a mental thing, it's a word thing, vocabulary thing, but on another level, it's a body thing. And I'll just rapidly rehash what I was saying. I was talking to my priest about making these videos, thinking about what I'm going to do, blah blah blah. When I move in a little while, I might stop making these, at least with the same rapidity. And I don't know, more navel gazing, I guess, more. Oh man, conflict. Where does it come from? Simplicity. Whither simplicity? Whither art thou? So yeah, again, the bodily nature of trauma. I mean, working a desk job, yeah, working an office jobs is the worst job except for all the others. Just like capitalism is the worst system except for all the others. It's the worst job except for all the others. You sit down, you're at a desk. It's all right, but bodily, it's like, my God, I want to move around. I really would like to be able to move. So much of life is about, adult life is about keeping you stationary, keeping you from becoming animated. I mean, I feel bad as a parent sometimes because it seems like most of what parenthood involves is getting your children to simmer down, to be still and quiet. We all have this natural tendency to want to move and to explore, and it gets snuffed out over time. And the reason art is so attractive, I mean, art can also become this vehicle for pride and navel gazery, but naval gadgetry, but it's also this area where you can explore. You can have a kind of childlike glee and find a way to sublimate all that deep kind of need to move, just to breathe. You know, just to breathe, just to take a deep breath. You know? Oh. This ordinary life can just feel so suffocating. So suffocating. But, I don't know. I'm always hedging my bets. I'm always qualified. Getting caught in these quicksands of infinite regrets. How do simplicity, theme of the morning is simplicity. What does it mean to be simple in the good sense, in the godly sense? I mean, walking is a simple act, to say. But it's also a complex act because it only becomes simple after you learn it. When children are learning how to walk, it's not simple at all. They fall over, they trip on things, constantly falling and crying. They fall off of things, they run into things. But when you learn how to walk, it's go for a stroll down a quiet street. It's an exercise in simplicity. So the simple is something that you grow into. In some sense. Rather than something you can just sort of attain simply by an act of pulling back. So that's one of the strange things about simplicity. The injunction to be simple, to behave with Christ-like simplicity is a difficult thing to really wrap one's mind around. I wonder the audio is on these. I think the audio is pretty terrible on these videos, actually. Silence. The stupidity of speaking about silence. Maybe I'll just spend the rest of this. Maybe I'll just spend the rest of this video in silence. Not knowing. Not knowing. Zen, call it the don't know mind. Don't know. Don't know. Don't know. You keep that. You keep that. You keep that don't know. The Buddha said. Keep that don't know mind. Don't know. Don't know. Don't know. Let me loop back. Talking about paradoxical intention. So, in couples therapy, the couple is prone to fight. You instruct them to get into a fight, but make a little bow beforehand. Make a ceremony of it. Declare their intention to fight and do it. It reminded me of how people would duel in old-timey days, and how back before guns were all that effective, someone would become offended. They would challenge the other person to a duel, and they would stand in front of each other's muskets. They'd fire, and very frequently nothing would happen. But even when nothing would happen, there would be a kind of release. There'd be an emotional releasing. They demanded satisfaction, and satisfaction they would get from. There's something about stepping into that space, putting your throat out and saying, "Here it is. If you want to ready your knife." Even if it's sort of it becomes ritualistic, it becomes ceremonial. There's something about stepping into the gap that way, which is stepping into the gap. That's a phrase I heard from a woman who was a missionary to Africa, some place in Africa called the Gap. And when there were warring tribes, I guess it was a place where human sacrifice used to take place. And with these warring tribes, they would take a representative from each tribe, and they would stand into the gap and serve as representatives for their warring tribe, and they would stand there and make a kind of peace in this space, this area of bloodshed. So the willingness to step into the gap, to even if you don't get into a fight, it's not about getting into the fight. It's about making known to the other person the depth of your pain, of your fill in the blank. That only by proving your own willingness to fight to the death, showing the other person, like, this is how deeply I feel this thing in the marrow of my bones, that I'm willing to stake everything. And so, these paradoxical intentions, it's a bit of a feint, it's a bit of a life hack, a bit of a joke on one level, but there's a sort of reality to it at the same time, in the same way as there's a reality to a duel, to an old-timey duel. There's, it's mostly red Kool-Aid, but there's a drop of blood in it. There's a substrate of authenticity that is expressing itself through the mask of play, the mask of paradox. And it seems like it's like a vaccine, that's how a vaccine works. You introduce a little bit of the virus into the host body so that the host body can build up an immunity to it. That's a bit of what's being attempted, I think, with the paradoxical intention. It's like you're taking an anger vaccine, a turmoil vaccine, a vaccine to prevent turmoil, tribulation. Because there's even though one might not want to get into difficult situations, into self-sabotage in various ways, the urge to do so at times becomes irresistible. And it's because there's a secondary gain of, the way I'm thinking about it is, it's a way of reshuffling the deck, a way of letting loose, letting your breathing deepen again. When I do meditate, I meditate right now. There's always a moment in meditation when you notice that your breath drops, your breathing drops. And you've let down your guard. And part of your guard is keeping you from being aware that you're keeping up your guard in the first place. So it's like it's not something that is under conscious command and conscious control always, because you're so in in your experience sometimes, many times, all the time on some level, that there's a kind of shield, or that kind of you're keeping guard over yourself. You're watching yourself. I am watching myself, and I would like to be able to relieve myself of the tension that causes. Drop into a more steady, simple, connected, rooted state of being. But how can you do that? How can you rush yourself into being less rushed? You know, you can't. There's no, because it's a kind of frenzy, a sort of hectic frenzy. So how can you really? You can't rush yourself into being unrushed, into being at ease. The only way to become at ease is to become at ease. You can't speed your way into slowness. You have to slow your way into slowness. There's no other way. Some kind of weird jam here. I don't know what the heck is going on. What is this? Alright, here we go. I need to get in the left lane anyway. So inebriated on the sound of my own voice. I have a very nice timbre to my voice. I know that. I know that about myself. My. Oy vey. Here we go, yo. Even like the hunted hind behind the water brook's desires, even thus my soul, which fainting is, to thee would fain aspire. My soul doth thirst for God, of life and grace, and saith even thus, will I come see thy shining face. E'en thus, will I see thy shining face. We're all clogged up this morning. Everyone was celebrating MLK Day yesterday. It's a Monday of a Tuesday. It'll be afternoon all morning. It's a Monday of a Tuesday. It'll be afternoon all morning. The taillights look like headlights. Smog like forest rain. Metal pipes, rubber wires. Stop signs, forest fires. Tribulation and trial. Take another sip from the vial. I don't know. Just free balling here. Merge. I have to merge. I'm a little red blood cell in the artery of the city. I need to oxygenate. Okay. I think I'm okay now. I think I'm all right. So we make transactions with ourselves. If you can listen to thoughts, if you can quiet the mind enough to listen to the background noise of thinking, the first thing I often notice is that my mind is performing all kinds of calculations with itself. It's weighing alternatives and thinking, if I do X, I will get Y, but if I do Z, I'll get Q. And so, what if I do half X and half Y? Well, I might get half Z and half Q, or I could get quarter L, and there's this incredibly, you're kind of crunching numbers in the back of your skull, trying to maximize your returns. And there's a sort of sacrifice implied in the act of simplicity, of stillness, of silence, of presence, because you are sacrificing whatever returns you would otherwise be striving inwardly to maximize. You're standing in front of the musket. You're putting the target on your chest. And breathing. And just being there. Being there with the target on your chest. Without your cloaking device activated. It's an interesting place to be. It seems like an almost impossible place to be continuously. You get at this state in little spurts. Little childlike spurts. You attain these little whispers of presence, of authentic being here now with reality, with it all. And one of the funny things about it is, as soon as you start to get a handle on it, you lose it. Because it becomes a part of your next calculation. So it's like, okay, you escape the calculation, you escape the number crunching for a minute. You enter into this easy breezy place of unknowing, the cloud of unknowing. You feel the breath of God. There you are. And let's say it goes well. You feel invigorated. You feel oxygenated. Your little blood cell. You. And then you fall back. You get distracted. It's calculation again. And then you're doing your XYZ alphabet soup calculation again. And then you think, oh, what about that experience of unknowing? How about I utilize that? It seems like a rather fungible asset. And then the problems begin anew. And so even the best parts of us get sucked in. But maybe the reverse holds true as well. One could conject. One could eject from one's mouth, as I've just done. The worst parts of us, the parts of us we hold in greatest disdain, contempt. Maybe it's those parts that provide the greatest insight. It's like a very fake-wise thing to say, but maybe that has some truth to it too. Say you have some nasty habits. about that? What does that reveal? If you can look at it. Anyway. If there be nothing new, and all that is hath been before, how are our brains beguiled, which laboring for invention bear amiss the second birthing of a former child? Oh, that record could with a backward look, even of 500 courses of the sun, find your image in some antique book, since mind at first in character was done, that I might see what the old world could say to this composed wonder of your frame, whether we are mended or where better they, or whether revolution be the same. Oh, sure I am the wits of former days to subjects worse have given admiring praise. Not my love be called idolatry, or my beloved as an idol show, since all alike my songs and praises be to one of one, still such and ever so. Kind is my love today, tomorrow kind, still constant in a wondrous excellence. Since then my love to constancy confined, expressing one thing, leaves out difference. Fair, kind, and true is all my argument. Fair, kind, and true, varying to other words. And in this change is my invention spent. 3 themes in one, which wondrous scope affords. Fair, kind, and true have often lived alone, which 3, till now, never kept seat in one. With that change is my invention spent. Fair, kind, and true.